Hello, everybody. Here we are again with another edition to join the discussion. Today, we're talking Aaron Chad, gubernatorial candidate for the state of Maine, right in Republican, but I would say he's a pretty independent thinking guy. So,
I've been telling people there's on the original Maine flag. Have you guys seen the original Maine flag? So there's an old flag that is so much cooler than the flag that we have now. What we have now is blue. It has the seal. It's really busy. It's small. And if you look at other state flags, well, the old Maine flag was a yellow in the back, a green tree, and a blue star. And you could really tell it stood out. It was Maine.
Yeah.
And so I've been telling everyone that's my symbol. That's the fir tree. I call it Free Independent Republican because I still am Republican. I'm a lifelong Republican. I grew up Republican back when being Republican meant something. And what it meant was we believed in government. We believed that government had a very specific role to play. There are some things that only government can do, and we need government to do those things and do them really well.
And they held up that conservative value.
Exactly. Like the roads we were talking about, right? We want to make it as far as possible. So roads so we can get from point A to point B, so that we can deliver goods, so we can have business work, so we can get to work. Things like public safety or child welfare and even public education. We should have public education. We need an educated population. But today we have all these other things that we want government to do. And then if you're not focused, then you're not going to be effective either. So I am a Republican, but right now I think the two parties have just become so locked up in self-preservation, longer looking at what they can do to help people and how they promote the best government. Instead, they're focused on how do they preserve the two-party system and how do a lot of these politicians stay in power and stay there. And I think that's shameful. Now, I don't love being in government. I did it for the last 3+ years for Governor LePage, and I found it very frustrating. I found it very rewarding. I found it very exciting. Some days I got very concerned because I saw the volume of different types of things that went across Governor LePage's desk, and it gave me the realization that government's involved in too much of our lives.
Right.
So, but I didn't want to stay in government. I want to go back to the private sector, but I think this is just such a critical moment. It's a critical moment for the state of Maine because the people who've been playing by the rules, minding their own business, keeping their nose clean, they seem to get the raw end every single time.
Right, and we need somebody to speak up for us, so we appreciate it for sure.
Well, it's cool because I've been inside the government, I've been outside the government, I've been out of Maine, I've been back into the state of Maine because I love this place. I grew up in Gorham. We're standing right now. I grew up just down the street in Gorham. It's a great place to grow up. Both my parents were teachers.
I love raising my kids too.
Right? I mean, this is a great place to live, but our way of life is threatened. And it's not I don't want to be all white power, Laura Ingraham, all this other stuff. That's not what we're talking about. Our way of life is threatened just based on whether or not we are getting aware and involved in what's going on. A lot of people are content to just let public policy happen to them. We actually need to be an active population that knows what's happening, whether we're talking about healthcare or education or infrastructure spending or any of the things they do down in Washington.
No, absolutely. Now, talking about how you do identify yourself, what would you say is your base? Where do you connect with the most?
And who are you appealing to?
I want to appeal to, and the people that I hear back from the most are real people who do their own homework, read involved, and research. Because there are a lot of other people who just told the party lying because they're told by the party this is what you'll do, and so they just don't ask questions. They're not critical thinkers. People who are critical thinkers,
or their father was a Republican, or their mother was a Democrat, or their father was a Democrat.
Even then, in Maine, we've always had an independent streak.
There is no free thinking in that term, as far as to know what really is going on today in politics and how do I feel about the problems at hand. And I think that people do rely on, like you said, whether it's what my mom was or what it's cool to be in this district or what it's cool to be in this group of people. So I think that someone like you coming out and letting people know the real issues, apart from the party line issues, so to speak.
Well, a lot of people outsource their thinking. They say, I don't have to think about this because someone's thought about it for me. Chuck Todd or whoever on TV, Rachel Maddow or Keith Olbermann or Sean Hannity.
It felt like they dealt with it today because they talked about it.
And what you need the people who actually, studied U.S. history, people who actually read books, people who read the Constitution and understand it. I think we've seen our education system slowly be taken over by either people with specific ideologies are just trying to sell content into the schools.
Well, with the
and so there's so much that's been taken out of critical of allowing teachers to do what's in the best interest of the kids.
Right.
And so a group that I spend a lot of time with is parents who are fed up with what's going on in our schools. And because I've spent a lot of time around the bureaucracy and the bureaucratic speak, I know what the game is. I know what buzzwords they use to get paid. And so I go try to disrupt that. And I try to empower parents and teachers, because the teachers, oftentimes teachers know which kids need help, and they know generally how to help some of them. There are some of them that have behavioral problems that come from families, support structure, taught them how to learn properly. And so there's more to do. And some of those are expensive students to serve because they have a high level of need. We can deal with that. But right now what we do is we tie teachers' hands behind their backs. We make them fill out all this bureaucratic
well, I was just going to say
bullshit, but
I think it's a great analogy to the system is the bureaucracy that we put our teachers under. I mean, like, how are they supposed to do their jobs when their hands are tied, like you say? I mean, that I think that extends far beyond teachers and right into the belly of the system that we have running right now. And so I'm glad that you point them issues out, Aaron. I mean, because and if you can get in there and point them out in government, I mean, that would be much healthier for us as a state. And I think we would.
And that's the only way, though.
As a people,
you need a well-educated population in order to be effective. And so we run into all these problems where, well, people don't want you to point out that their school is failing because they don't want you to dissuade people from moving to their community. I had someone in Lewiston, one of the state senators in Lewiston, said, "Don't tell people that we aren't doing well, because then people aren't going to want to buy homes here."
Well, how are you going to?
I said, "Well, how about you fix it?
Right.
How about you fix it? So you actually, let's make sure that people are learning. That way, everyone that goes through the school system, people that buy there, are going to be well served."
Absolutely, absolutely.
How are we broadcasting? Coming okay?
Yeah, no, we're coming good. I'm just trying to get it on all the platforms. Now, one of the other things that I wanted to hit on with you about your base is, obviously you don't have the big backing of your party or any organization, you know what I mean? So the
people back, Aaron.
The one thing I wanted you to touch upon was the importance of your $5 Fridays and your events like that, because I follow them a lot and I repost every time that I see one of them. But explain how crucial that is to an independent or a third party just to have the ability to fight the big money in the state.
And I think that's really important. Thank you for asking. So if people want to go to my Facebook page, Run Aaron Run, I have a second one that's just, when I do positive things that aren't political. It's my Aaron from Maine page, AARON, which all of you are going to have to learn how to spell Aaron. AARON, 5 letters. That's what you're going to have to put on the ballot. You're going to have to write it in. You're going to fill in a circle. Aaron, you can't feel it. I love it. You done messed up, Aaron.
It's simple. It really is simple to write. Aaron Chadbourne down on a piece of paper.
You just write it down, Aaron. We're not going to even deal with Chadbourne. We're just going to say Aaron. Because Aaron is what you need, because who else? It's me. I'm going to be registered. I'm going to go for it. We need individuals. So like the Republican candidate, he's a nice guy. I've known him my whole life. I know his family. I don't have anything bad to say about him personally as a person, but from a policy perspective, he's not informed. And so he's getting played. And like, that's really concerning to me. So he's a good guy. But he is a multimillionaire, and good for him. Good for him. He's had a great career, and I believe in business. I believe in capitalism. So like, that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
And so I'm very happy for him. However, he's going to be able to self-fund. He already donates, matches it by $1. So he donated last time to himself. Last time he ran, he spent $500,000 to get 5% of the vote. This time he's already put in $500,000. That bought a primary, and now he thinks it's going to go better, and he'll get money from the national organization.
So that's the importance.
The Democrat, she is getting all the money from the teachers union and the environmental unions, and all of these special interests are funding her. And then the independent candidate, she has taxpayer funded money, right? Well, they call it clean elections, but it's really taxpayer, like, welfare for politicians. And so she's using all of her money, millions of dollars, to buy political ads and play for her sign so she can go and do it. So I'm going to be outspent, but what we can't do, what they can do, is they can't manufacture, and they can't buy loyalty. They can't buy ideas.
Right.
And that's why we do these $5 Fridays.
Exactly.
And it's summer, so I haven't tried to go too crazy. And then Friday's a day. Fridays, if you forget if you're gone.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to do on Monday, this Monday, because next Monday, the 20th, we're going to the Red Sox game. I did a contest for people to help us design our logos and our signs, and we got a bunch of cool things. So people that entered, we actually bought a block of tickets, and we're taking about 30 of us are going to the game. But I bought a couple standing room only tickets on the Green Monster. So I'm going to do Green Monster Monday. So anyone who donates on Monday and Tuesday, we'll leave it open maybe till Wednesday, can be put in for 2 tickets. Standing room only. It's not seats, whatever, but it's standing room on the Monster, which when I was a kid, I loved the Green Monster, right? Don't you love it? Yeah. So that's what we'll do. We'll do Green Monster Monday. Wants to follow my page, Run Aaron Run, or you can friend me on Facebook, Aaron AA Ron, Chadbourne. Find me through here. We'll put up the donation link and where you can give.
Because that's why donating is important, is because of of how much you're outspent. How much the tide is against you. I mean, it's good for us. And like we were talking about earlier, there's more people that don't vote than that do vote. Yeah. So I mean, if we get out there, you can't, and that's what you can't buy. You can't buy somebody's motivation. You can buy all the signs you want, and you can buy all the rhetoric you want, but you can't buy somebody's loyalty, like you were saying, and you can't buy truth.
Well, and people that donate $5 are so much more invested than people who donate $5,000, right? Those people that write big checks and think their money doesn't work for them, they don't get it. They don't get what real people, what it means, right? Anyone who every dollar you earn that was hard work. Right. It's your labor. It's your life force. We were talking about it earlier, right? The decision that you make to go to work every day and to dedicate how you spend your time. It's a choice. It's a sacrifice. Yeah. And so we don't take any of that for granted. And I'm grateful for anyone who's willing to donate. Absolutely. And then usually the people who donate, we try to give you other ways to get involved too. Mm-hmm. So it's really funny. Someone was the Republicans because I got some donations from out of state. They said, you're taking
another way another way people can donate is tell your family, tell your friends about Aaron. Share the page, Run Aaron Run. And really, and
once we raise a little bit more money, we're gonna have signs printed, and we'll have things. We'll sell T-shirts so if people want those. Right. Because we'll let people whatever they want, however they want to do. But yeah, share the page, get people to like it. That's what we really appreciate. I was gonna say though, someone's giving me a hard time for having people donate from out of state. And I said, well, all the rich people have left Maine. And not even the rich people, right? And the people I went to Gorham High School with, a lot of them left Maine for jobs.
A lot of people I went to with in South Portland.
Well, Florida's Maine's second home.
They go to Boston and they go to New York because it pays better. There's more opportunity. Absolutely. And, I want them back.
I feel you.
And I go talk to them, and they say, "Oh, give me a call when you have something." And I sometimes do, and I've been successfully recruiting some people home. But also, I have to say, we need them back so that we can reinvent
bringing jobs back to Maine or bringing people back to Maine.
But we need an ecosystem. We have to have people that can, because we're a small business state, right?
For sure.
And you can start your own thing. But what do you need to start your own thing?
Motivation and money and capital, You
need a vision. You need to believe in yourself like I do, right? And I have to tell people all the time, I say, how do you think you're going to win? I said, well, first of all, let's suspend your disbelief.
Right.
Suspend disbelief.
I like how you did that the other night, too, for me. You said no, and you put me back, and I like that. And that's the truth.
You got to have faith.
Suspend that disbelief, have faith.
So have faith. But then the other thing you need?
And keep pushing.
You need a connection to the internet.
No, for sure.
I don't understand. I had this big problem, and you guys know because you called me before. I drive all the time. I'm always on the road,
and you're always available.
I always lose signal like halfway through. And the interstate is the worst. Why do we not have cell phone signal along the interstate? It makes no sense. I was on the phone with you guys know Larry Lockman. I was on the phone with Larry Lockman. He's a representative from Amherst. Yeah. And he was talking to me, and I said to Larry, "I'm cutting out. I'm sorry." And he said, "Oh, you must be on the interstate." Like they know.
Yeah.
That it's not even. We're not even like deep in the woods. Yeah. But we should be able to do that. This is 2018. We're still using 1990s technology.
Right.
We haven't invested in high-speed internet, which you don't necessarily have to run wires everywhere. Some of it you can do through satellite. Some of it you can do other ways. But if we want our communities to reinvent themselves, the places where the paper mills went out, you know what they need? The internet. That's how you get information. Look at you guys. Look at what you do.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna say, for some people, the internet is a tool. It's not in a device of amusement. I mean, people utilize it.
It's just like the roads. You need to have that access to markets, access to education. It's critical. So we got to invest in that. We got to invest in fixing our schools. We really, especially in rural Maine, like the educational opportunity is not what it is in other parts of the state. And you need to have good schools in order to attract people that want to put their kids in those schools and run businesses. That's one of the big problems they had in Millinocket is the people that took over the old Katahdin, these guys that had grown up in Maine, moved away, made all their money, and they bought it. They couldn't get companies to come there because they said, well, where are we going to send our kids for school? These executives making six figures, where are they going to send their children? They say we want to have good enough schools for that.
Give me one of those. No, definitely the schools is important. The one thing that I wanted to hit on that you hit on, people, the money that they donate, they work hard for. They want to know who they're spending their money on and what they're spending. So explain to us the things that you are doing, the school programs, like you said that you're doing, the three programs that you hit on last time. I got my notes. I don't have them with me, unfortunately.
I'm gonna take a quick detour though. I don't mean to dodge your question. But what you just said, people want to know. This is one of the things that I've been worked up about this week and these last couple of weeks is this proposal in Portland. Have you seen it?
Absolutely.
This proposal in Portland to allow. They say they just because they're members of our community, they're not citizens. Some of them aren't here legally, and we want to make sure that they can vote because we want to give them a voice, and that's what it is. This push, radical left, to make non-citizens have to vote. They had some people from out of state commenting, "Oh, why is that so bad? Why is that so bad? What does citizenship mean? Citizenship conveys on you certain rights, one of which, not all of them, but one of which is the right to it was hard fought for and hard earned by groups throughout history, and now we have people that are just saying, oh, well, we're present. We're physically present. But there are people, there are businesses, right? You guys live here in Standish. Let's say you work in South Portland or Cape Elizabeth. You're there and you're working there, but you don't get to vote there. Right. Even though you're present there more times than you're present at your house, you know, people that aren't even citizens, we're going to let them vote. Crazy. But what that's really setting the stage is for it's this whole socialism redistribution thing of we want to be able to vote to take things away from the people who have them.
No, you're exactly right. The analogy that I was thinking of in my head is it's like opening up my door, somebody opening up my door and inviting somebody else to come in and go bread on my counter. I mean, this is our country, and we should hold that for something. I mean, by no means are we nationalists, you know, but we as a country should hold our sovereignty very dear.
Right, and people
we're not any more important.
And the way they're having this
debate
else is ridiculous. When no one's paying attention,
we are a country,
and they're rushing to it. They say, "Oh, we'll put it on a referendum." Well, people always vote yes on referendums. Like referendums rarely fail, except when they're spending lots of money or when they go after the guns. When they
right, that's
always confusing. They always try to confuse you, so you don't know.
Vote no when you want yes, and vote yes when you want no.
They ask a double negative. They do all this like cute stuff. It's bureaucratic like stuff. They're like, oh, it's what we had to do.
It's the trick for the people that make them the sheep. You know, and I hate to say that, but that makes us, it makes us no less than what's going on, and unfortunately, some of us are duped by that. And it's just an unfair part of the game.
But getting back to your question, the two places that have the biggest spend when you talk about government, that's its own thing. Outside of the roads and the bridges, there are two basically large of how we spend our money. One is the welfare system and like DHHS, and the second is education. That's where most of the money goes. Everything else is like squeezed into this little small part. It's its own budget, and so it's another thing that we can deal with. But with the education system, we need to do is we need to take some looks at like what are we getting for the money that we're paying. Is the money going to teachers or is it going to empty buildings? Is the money going to teachers or is it going to administration and overhead? Do we have kids that don't have access to the resources they need? Let's manage them. So I used to do private consulting, and you would do system optimization. You would say, this thing needs to get done. Are we doing it the best way and the most efficient way? That's what we should be doing. But we have this whole local control thing where we say, oh, well, I'm in Standish Farm. We can't touch it. Well, they're all our kids. And we need to make sure that we have productive ones. Because everyone coming out, we need them for our workforce. We have more people dying than being born, retiring than graduating high school. So we need to make sure that everyone coming out is well connected. And if you have potential, we unlock it.
Maybe this is socialist thinking, but I believe that every district should be responsible for the schooling. It's just that I also think the state should be able to have some oversight. If a district is failing, and
that's what the Constitution is. The Maine Constitution. I forget the citation. Other people know. I think it's like Article 8 or something. It speaks to what the role of the state in public education is. And it says, basically, I'm paraphrasing, but it says a public education for the provision of society. It shall be the role of the state to ensure that everyone receives a good public education, but public education, adequate, and that it should be done at their own expense, and the municipalities at their own expense. What it's turned into is people now care about more is what is the state. They look at the state as a checkbook, not as a check on accountability. But then the accountability that we do, all this testing that we do, a lot of these high stakes tests that they do at the end of the year, and they're not necessarily testing based on like whether you can think. It's just like it's a game. Feedback back to the teacher. So it's like, what are we doing? What is the companies that are then going to benefits? And so we need to make sure our education system to be about the student. What does the student need? And we need to keep the parents involved. Because unless you guys have kids, unless you're involved as a parent, like you don't know what's happening to your kids. And oftentimes it's not what you'd expect. If you go to in schools or family, we can't ignore it.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you 100%.
So, elaborate what programs you do have going on, because you said wait till they find out. One of the intrigues, wait till they find out what we're doing. Well, the page.
Yeah. Well, no one's paying attention. Going on because things don't get done inside Augusta. What did get done, and I have great respect for Governor LePage, the way the budget. I obviously worked very hard for him on the budget and on the negotiations with the legislature, which was particularly difficult given that the current Speaker of the House, Sarah Gain, is the greatest history of the state of Maine. She can't manage to even park her car, let alone manage to schedule the legislature. We had a government shut down just because she couldn't count votes. They still haven't concluded. They were supposed to be done in April session because they haven't got their work done, and she can't figure out how to do it. And she won't do it out in the public eye. She does it behind closed doors when no one's paying attention. And so it's the middle of summer in Maine, and the legislature's still there, and they're failing because she's so incompetent. And you're being really mean or nice. It's about holding people accountable.
Absolutely.
When I was in business, like, you have certain objectives. Do you achieve them? Yes or no? You would give people, if you're evaluating one of your employees,
what your constituents should do in this democracy that we got going on. I mean, you should hold your what's the word? Your representatives accountable. Yep. That's what I meant.
Accountability in government. But here's what we did. So we negotiated in the budget, and we did it in the budget because that's your only leverage point. I'm not going to control. So we negotiated into the budget when most people were not paying close enough attention. Was we put in incentives that what they used to do with consolidation pushes down. The state would come in and tell you, here's what you're going to do. And usually the state's wrong. What we did instead is we said, you tell us to improve, share it in a region. The biggest place for the opportunity for areas in Maine, one is high schools. Because in the high schools, if you don't have critical mass, you don't have a certain number of kids to fill your seats.
Right.
And you start cutting back AP class language. The other very expensive thing to do is special education. And special education these days, when you and I were kids, because there are kids living with conditions that when we were kids, they either wouldn't have survived or they wouldn't have been able to be in school. So now there's much more. It's very expensive.
Right, yeah.
And so we say, you guys
what about medication? Does that play a part in it? I mean, there's more medications in schools than when I was a child as well.
Those medications, some of them are like Adderall.
Oh, for sure. Some kids definitely need medications they're on, but I also believe that there's an industry pushing it as well.
Oh, for sure.
And I won't name no names just out of respect, but
so we said to them, all right, listen, we created this framework. I wrote it together with my colleagues at the Department of Education. We did a lot of states, and we basically what we did, and it's on Facebook Facebook too. Facebook/Run Aaron Run or Run Aaron Run. So what we did is we said, look, there should be, so in Maine we have 177,000 kids, but we have 148 school districts. It's ridiculous.
Wow.
You can keep your district, but why don't you just tell us, what do you guys want to do together? And we'll give you financial incentives and we'll give you support if you work together. And the superintendents complained. They said they didn't want it. They said no one's going to do it. And I set a goal in law that we wanted 9 to 12 regional cooperatives, basically, regional service centers. And your service center could be for like food purchasing to get your costs down for your cafeteria services or payroll, or it could be for professional development for teachers, right? Stuff that you could do together that you could cheaper price scale, you could do better. They all said, no one's going to do it. You know how many got created? 19. We were hoping for 9 to 12. 19 got set up, and they're now partnerships, and they're all doing slightly different things. And so it's a good pilot. And then we found this old piece of law that authorized, rather than schools going on their own for school construction, there's a school construction program that said, if you build a regional high school, and it's regional, that has a high school, traditional high school, and degree granting from the university and the community college all on one campus, the state will build your school. And the program never got off the ground because the lawmakers in Augusta tried to pick winners and losers and do it to this community from the place where it came.
Yep.
We worked on education is we made it a competition. We said, look, if you want to do this, come compete for it.
That's cool.
And we had 7 different groups of schools come saying, we want to close down our schools and build a new one. 7 groups, right? So only 3 groups made it forward. There's a 4th one that I'm still working with. We're going to fix them.
That's really a comprehensive idea.
But so there are 3. There are 3.
Idea.
One in
awesome.
northern Aroostook County, one in southern Aroostook County. They will, if this goes forward, they all think that only one of them is going to get picked. But there's enough money in debt service that's authorized by the legislation to do all 3 of them. So if we are successful and if we go forward with all 3, it will mean there will be 10 Maine high schools closing. 10 Maine high schools will close, and they'll be replaced by 3 regional super centers that have a high school, a career and technical education center, and then degree granting.
Very nice.
So community college, everywhere else. It's game changing, and they want it. And the communities are planning. It's going to be what they design. It's not dictated by the state, but the state is there as a partner, and they're there with the incentives. That's what we need. And if we have those, and then if we go to the 4th, that area, which I'm trying to raise $100 million privately to help build. And then if we go to Washington County, where there used to be the prison, and we partnered there too, and we bring in some of the private higher education institutions. Now you have like now we're talking about real high schools again that have enough kids in them they can do it stuff. Yes, there are problems with transportation. Yes, there are questions to answer, but the communities can design solutions that work for them, that reflect their values, that reflect what they need. And then those become hubs for economic development, because education, economic development go hand in hand. You get the local businesses involved. They also become anchor points for what I've been talking about, rural broadband, expanding the internet. The schools already have it usually, but we have to make it part of the broader system to then get internet to those regions so that you can reignite creativity and a small business economy in those areas. So that's kind of what is going on, and what is going forward regardless of whether I become governor or not. I've been spending my time, without anyone paying attention,
which is amazing,
out with the school boards and the local town councils, trying to help them figure out how to reinvent themselves. And then I did this other thing where in Lincoln, Lee, Millinocket, that area.
I want to know about them all. You said there was 3.
Yeah, there's 3. So St. John Valley, Holton area, and then Piscataquis County. Those are 3. But then number 4, which is my private one, Project Omar, which I always hint about, but I never I haven't really explained yet. But I will. I'll do a launch of Project Omar. They know, the people that are involved know, and it's kind of our open secret. But we saved Lee Academy. Lee Academy was about to run out of cash flow, and we got Lee Academy, which is they were founded in like 1860. They're private school, private academy, and their mission is awesome. They're in the middle of the Maine woods, and their mission is to educate kids so that kids can do whatever career they want. Like, it's very clear. It's more complicated than that, but that's
well, that seems like education to me. I mean, right. The monkey climbs the tree and a fish swims in the river, and I've always thought that every kid learns different. I mean, every kid has its own his or her own ambitions, and to stifle one's ambition is probably the most dastardly deed any person could do. So, the fact that you hit upon that, I mean, is in itself innovative, and not only innovative, but really appealing to someone like me who's a free thinker, because that's, you know,
you're a free thinker, so you're open to the marketplace of ideas, the marketplace of solutions. And what happens in these schools is they say, oh, it's a zero-sum game. All the money has to go to the public school. Otherwise, if you have private schools,
I'm pro-capitalism. I'm definitely, you know, I believe in, you know, a free and fair market. I believe in competition. I believe in you know, encouraging people to
give people choices, give them
work
options.
hard. Absolutely, you know, give them options. That way, so you know, if one thing doesn't suit them, that's fine. There's plenty more out there, and that's what we're hoping to you know, have for Maine and keep for Maine. To be honest, Maine's a great state to live in. I love Maine, and I don't know if it's, you know, because the last 4 years have been really good, or because I'm really growing to appreciate it. But I do love Maine, and I just hope we keep going in the same direction.
How's the economy going? Trump is going to win by a landslide. The economy is great. The media is showing everyone that they're unfair, they're rigged.
Yep.
And that's what, I mean, working for Governor LePage, I saw it firsthand, because Governor LePage was an outsider. He doesn't say the right things for the right people. He doesn't speak the Queen's English, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they've always been huge opponents of him, and they always distort the coverage. And Trump's getting the same thing. And even Democrats, like this walk-away movement with African Americans, people are getting wise to the fact that
but I appreciate his candidness.
Yeah.
I really do. I really do. And you know, some people might get offended by it, but I'll be honest. I appreciate the fact that he can come out and tell how it is, and not worry about pandering and trying to please, whether it be the media or you know, his personal constituents. I mean, he comes out and he says how it is, and I don't think he really minds who it rubs wrong or who it rubs right. And it's just, and that to me speaks that you know, you have integrity. You know, you'll do something no matter who's looking, and you'll do it knowing that you feel it's right. And
well, I think there are a couple things to that. Like, number one, Governor LePage has done such a great job at getting the state's government back in order. He's a turnaround CEO. We've had an amazing turnaround given how horrible the situation was. And
for the record, I'm nor Republican nor Democrat.
So he did a great job. So we need to have a governor that comes in that can build and grow, a growth-minded CEO that can grow based on that. Number two, though, and to what you were saying is, I mean, what we care about, what people care about is how they get affected.
Right.
Like, what matters to them. Right. What people in Augusta care about is their own status and like whether or not they're advantaged by what's going on there. And that's not what matters to voters. That's not what matters to taxpayers.
I'm worried about how my family's doing, how my children are learning. You know, the basic things that you touched upon are what I'm worried about. I mean, I'm worried about what affects me on my day-to-day life, and not what affects somebody's pockets in Augusta, like you were saying.
And that's what I always say to candidates is you can't just be concerned with your own, like what's in it for you. You have to say, how am I serving the people? How am I advantaging my constituents? And how am I making sure that the government is responsive and accountable? And that's what you need to be able to do. And some people are afraid of that. They say, oh, you can't tell people what you're really going to do. Why not? You should.
Absolutely.
As you should.
Yep.
No, for real. Now, another thing that I wanted to touch upon that we've talked about, but I wanted you to elaborate on is your tax plan. I am a small business owner. I'm a paint contractor. I have been in the industry. Now it's kind of dual because I know that we talked about it again in your education. We know, and the people who have followed, we know that you are pro trade, but I want to land that you have for trade schools, as you talked about, getting the I love the idea of the state building schools that have the vocational and all those things in one. That would be awesome if you elaborate on that. And then the other thing is the tax plan to keep small businesses in the state, because we, as I've said before, and as you know, being a lawyer, New York allows 10 years businesses to operate without any income tax. So, not saying that that's our solution. I think your solution would be a better one.
Well, our state is so dependent on the income tax. We're so dependent on the income tax, and then our property taxes are high too. And so, what we need to start doing is looking. Maine is a tourism-heavy state. I mean, we should be. I mean, because I'm a conservative, I believe in consumption-based taxation anyway. because you can pay your means, and people don't like it because it's regressive. But there are ways that you can like protect the poor in a situation like that.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
And we engineered that in the proposal that Governor LePage put in now 3.5 years ago, introduced to the 127th legislature in January of 2015. There was a tax credit that just said, like, look, if you're in level, you file and you get this money back. And you don't have to keep receipts, you don't have to do anything, but we want to make sure that you're taking care of the poorest among us. And you have ways you do that. You give them a tax credit, make it refundable, and you take care of people. So you can address the regressivity argument for people below a certain income level to make sure that if they can't afford it, like we don't want to tax the poor. That's not like what we're trying to do. We want to make sure that people who can afford to pay. And they pay based on what they use and how extravagant their lifestyle is. I think that's fantastic. It's market driven.
No, I would definitely agree. I would agree.
Income tax.
People don't live outside their means in that sense.
Yeah, and if you do, fine, you're going to pay for it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. There's repercussions that come along.
But the people that are the people that don't want an increased sales tax, I get that too because it hits you. But the income tax goes right to your wallet. Absolutely, it goes right to your wallet, and it's so much higher and so much greater. And Maine's income tax. Remember when we were kids, like Massachusetts was Taxachusetts? Now we're so much higher than them. People would rather live and work in Massachusetts than in Maine. It's crazy. And so we need to become less dependent on the income tax and lower it. Now, you can't lower it overnight. You can't get rid of it overnight, but you phase it out while you phase other things in.
I mean, what's the income tax rate right now in Maine?
7.1 something percent.
Okay, and what was it
when the page took office?
Yeah,
8.5.
So that's And Aaron, again, what did you do when you worked for LePage?
So I worked in tax policy, but it was the hardest thing. You know who fought us? Republicans fought us more than Democrats on it. Republicans, they didn't understand how consumption-based taxation is a good thing. I've actually argued, and it's probably too hard to do, but I've argued, like, why don't we have a higher seasonal sales tax? Why don't we let the sales tax go up in the summer and come down in the winter?
And how many politicians go fight their own party normally?
Republicans more and more these days because the Republican Party is just so weird. Like, I don't understand it. Like, the nominee for the Republican Party wasn't a Republican until 10 months ago, and Trump, it was funny during the primary.
He was a Democrat.
I was joking, and I'm serious. I've been a Republican longer than Sean Moody, Mary Mayhew, and Donald Trump put together.
I was gonna say,
right? And I'm only 34. I'm gonna be 35. Which, by the way, we used to have public servants that were 35 in their 30s and 40s, which is normal.
Absolutely.
LePage is about to be 70.
No, and Trump too.
Trump is old.
70 or yeah.
And now, if Janet Mills becomes governor, she's going to be 70 as governor, oldest governor in recent memory. Sean Moody is going to be oldest except for Paul LePage. Terry Hayes, same thing. Like when McKernan became governor, when King became governor, when Baldacci came, they were much younger men. Ken Curtis, like all these people were young when they became governor.
Yep.
But now Maine has just become so old, and people are only used to what they see right in front of them. We need to be aspirational to say we're going to lower the age of the state.
We need progressive conservatism. That's really what we need. We need to, keep our values, but we also need to move with the signs of the human condition.
Like we're making sure that people are better off than they were.
Of course, and like you were talking about the internet, trying to bring the internet to rural Maine, and because we have, if you're a Mainer, that connecting to the internet is, it's damn near impossible. So.
There are some places here. I had a better connection back when, 1996 when we had dial-up AOL. You get all those free discs. You try to get the free hour.
You got a direct connect. You weren't.
I remember then things would load faster than they do here now. Sometimes we all have phones. We're all overloading the system. But
I don't know how many times I'm driving down the road waiting for my song to load. Yeah. That happens to me so much. That's probably more of a memory to me than some family events that I'd like to cherish. So,
but the other thing we can do, and this goes back to Larry's point a minute ago about education. So, yes, I talked about restoring the trades to high school, but high school is too late. When young men start to lose interest, middle school, right? And so we need to give them experiences hands-on right then that say, hey, you're bored inside. Well, what you were saying, different kids learn differently. Right. Kids are hands-on, they have energy.
That's what I was gonna say.
When guys go through puberty, they're all awkward and weird. And I was a nerd, right? But I still also had issues. And,
absolutely. Absolutely. You learn to be a boy at your own rate.
Exactly.
But there is a process. And as for girls, I expect or I suspect,
and we need to have different experiences, different options. And one of the things you used to be able to do was go to shop class, and you used to be able to learn real practical skills and hands-on and get inspired.
For sure.
And we need to do that. We can't wait.
Sure.
High school is too late. Career and trade like experiences right now, the average student that gets them starts in the junior year of high school.
What about the fact that you know, the high school essentially is taking over the job of the father, you know, raising the son.
The whole school.
No,
but we can't talk about raising sons because now they're saying that there's no such thing as gender and that masculinity is toxic. And I mean, there are bad men out there, but there are good men, and we need good men. We need good husbands and fathers and members of civic society. And so this path that we're on to erase gender, to erase differences between men and women, like, yes, there are some people, and there's a very small segment of our population who is different, and we need to make sure that those people are treated fairly,
absolutely,
and those people are not made to go through a horrible experience.
Absolutely, but I can't be forced.
This
I'm
gender
not going to be forced to call somebody by what they want me to call them.
The bathroom issue is a great example. Bathroom issue. Everyone got so worked up.
I don't mean it in disrespect.
You know what the answer to the bathroom issue is?
Go ahead.
Make sure that there are private bathrooms some places that don't label them. Like, I mean, if you had a choice to go use a public bathroom with lots of people peeing next to you, or changing next to you or whatever, or you could use a private one. Which do you prefer?
I would probably use a private one.
Right?
Absolutely.
Everyone would.
Absolutely.
So why don't we just have more of those?
More
this isn't about
why name the bathroom.
Why do we care about the gender? And if it's if there's only one toilet in it, who cares whether it's man or woman inside? Why do we create all these problems?
Very right.
All this attention to our differences, but literally, all of us are uncomfortable in the bathroom next to other people.
I don't want to get too conspiracy theory about misdirection.
Right?
I just think that,
and I am I know you're very pro humanist
absolutely.
I also I just get very frustrated that the point that we're at in our society is everybody's full of fear and hate, and they're acting out on it. That's what you see on Twitter. That's what you see on Facebook.
I think it's what's pushed,
and they focus on the differences and the conflict, and really we're all. I mean, we all put on our pants one leg at a time. And we're all we're not getting out of this alone, right? We're on this planet together.
But on the citizen side of it, I feel it's being pushed on me. Racism is being pushed on me. Gender equality is being pushed on me. Politics is being pushed on me. I think I'm just an American. I just want to live free and
but being American,
eat meat. That's why that's all I want to do is raise my children.
And you can choose not to eat meat if you don't want to, but don't force me not to, right?
Right, absolutely. Right.
And because and again, I'm Christian. We've talked about our faith before, in the beginning, right? God made a deal with man, and it was you're going to be stewards of. You're going to be stewards of the land. You're going to be stewards of the earth, and you're going to care for the animals and whatever you raise and whatever.
And which we should.
And healthy respect we should have.
Absolutely.
And so that's what we were originally put here to do. And people can choose not to. And by the way, it might be healthier not to eat meat sometimes. Because you look at even the way we grow.
That was just an analogy, by the way.
But if people need to know where their food comes from.
No, and I agree with you on that.
Right?
I agree with you.
So that's why I love the legislature passed this session food sovereignty, which means that local municipalities can just say, go ahead, sell your stuff on the side of the road. Buyer beware. Good for it.
I watched a video with my son. This is actually a pretty funny story, or an interesting story. I watched a video with my son, and it was of a goat getting killed. And my son seen it, and he hated it. He did not return his stomach. But I said, Nick, they're going to eat that animal. And he said, well, Dad, I understand. If they're going to eat it, it's okay. But I would not want to kill anything more than I would eat. And that's coming from a 9-year-old. And I was just so.
But it's also good for him to know that when you eat meat, that's how it gets there.
And
you need to have full information to be informed.
For sure. And that was the point. It was Nick, well, that is actually where meat comes. It doesn't come from a grocery store. It comes from a living thing or a living animal that we should cherish and we should appreciate. And so. That's a great point that you bring up because that's a value that I hold very strongly, And
so I think in our society, there's all this emphasis right now on division, on hate, and you hurt me, I hurt you.
Right.
And where I've always grown up is that you don't fight hate with hate, you fight hate with love. You find the commonality and the humanity in other people, and you go after that. And if you have a difference of opinion, it's on you to bring people along and help them get to a point where they understand kind of what's up.
And if you have a difference of opinion, I mean, it's normal to debate that opinion.
Disagreement's okay.
Yeah, disagreement is okay, and to come out with a compromise is very, very human-like behavior to me. So it's animalistic to not
compromise. Compromise always means the Republicans and the Conservatives have to get. It always means that. It never means that the Democrats give something. It's always the Republicans move off their position. And that's what I've always found frustrating. Is
well,
that
wouldn't you say a misnomer is that the Republicans have all the money? I mean, yes. I think that is the biggest.
They're more working class people that are Republican
than are a big business. So so that's the misnomer. And I think that's one of the big misnomers that people don't know is that, you know, the Democratic Party is the most well-funded party. You know,
well, and so for them, a lot of this is academic. It's intellectual exercise.
Call it like you were saying.
And then it's patronizing. They say, "Oh, well, we know best. We're gonna lord over these people." No,
right?
People know best for themselves. Let people choose. Mm-hmm. And when people make mistakes, hold them accountable. Let them bear the consequences of their activities. Except for let's be humanitarian when people need help.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you 100%.
But anyway, fundamentally, I think you go back to what it means to be an American, and I'm uncomfortable letting non-Americans vote in American elections.
I
don't understand that. I don't understand how that's even.
And what I don't understand is how that could be linked with any kind of hatred either. It's a protection. It's a self-preservation. I mean, we want to preserve the values that we got.
But it's a benefit of membership. You go into Sam's Club, and unless you become a member of Sam's Club, you can't buy anything there.
No, exactly. I come from Irish heritage. We're gonna say from Greek heritage. You said,
and then the British too. We came over in 1632. But
the point is that everybody came over here from one route or another, and made their bones one way or another.
And
so
I hate we spend so much time. We spend so much time talking about workarounds because our immigration system the legal immigration system is so broken and so hard for people to get through. So instead, what people end up doing is they end up saying "Oh, well, we need illegal immigration." How about we just fix the legal immigration system? No, we're good. So, but why don't we just fix the current system? Why don't we make it work better? You know?
For sure.
No, for real. And how far can you go from the system in the amount of time that you're allotted to change things? Now, another thing that I really think is important for you to hit on. You hit on it with the immigration factor, but as far as keeping jobs here, how hard is it to get businesses to come into the state? How hard is it to recruit?
It depends. So when you go around the country, and I've done it, and it's always you don't want to spend too much time and too much money on people from out of state trying to attract them here. Because Maine is relatively poor. We don't have a big Texas. They have all these incentives that they can give to businesses. We basically go down and we say, hey, we have great people. The biggest problem we have right now is we don't have enough workers. So they say, if I move to Maine, who's going to do the jobs, right? If I create it there, and that's a good problem to have right now with low unemployment. But what we also need to be able to do is to say you're not going to have a competitive disadvantage. And there are certain industries for which that's true. If you're in biotech, there are businesses in Boston. We can say, look. Locate yourself in York County, Cumberland County, Kennebec County. Just come a little bit north from Boston. You're going to have a great quality of life, access to the same kind of talented labor. But if you're talking about forest products industry, they would love to be here. So I flew out on behalf of the governor to Montana to attract a cross-laminated timber manufacturer who is now going to relocate and create anything. Now, the jobs they're creating, what's so exciting is they're not line worker jobs. They're engineering jobs. They're sales jobs, they're accounting jobs, they're high-paying, high-wage jobs. But they say, oh, our
industrial
cost of electricity is going to be high, and so what we have to do is we're really uncompetitive. So they look at taxes, they look at cost of inputs. That's why manufacturing is so difficult. There's a great company in Lewiston. It's called Element Technologies. They make high-tech manufacturing. They have defense contracts, space-like type things, components that go into rockets and stuff, and they were looking at whether they could afford to move one of their operations from Georgia to Maine. And it was very difficult to do, and they ended up actually selling the business unit, so it stopped being an issue. But it was very hard to put together a package that made sense, access to capital and all these other things. There are some things that we could do that start to sound a little bit socialist, but they're not. For people who choose to live in Maine, what's the biggest problem for young people these days? Student loans. Well, we could help young people refinance their student loans. I know a few people
personally.
We can help them refinance their student loans, number one, to say, look, we'll borrow at the state's rate, we'll refinance your rate. So rather than paying 9, 10, 11%, you refinance down to 3% because the state can borrow cheaper. And so we could refinance their loans if they commit to staying in Maine for a certain amount of time. And the other thing that we proposed with Governor LePage is that we give employers a tax credit. If you pay off your employees' student debt, we as a state will give you a tax break. We're going to take fewer taxes in. And people say, oh, that's expense. It's not an expense. It's not taking taxes from businesses that will pay for young people, because we need more young people here.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
We sent everyone off to college. We made them spend all this money. And then, like, what do we do for them? We say, oh, good luck. Oh, I paid off mine. You pay off yours. But, like, at some point, we need these young people, and we need their education. We need their skills. This is the other thing about immigration that bothers me. We spend so much federal money and state money to subsidize our universities. We let all these international students in, and the second they graduate, we tell them to leave. They say, oh, you can't stay here. But we just invested all this to educate them. Why are we going to send them back to India or China or Mexico if they could be working here at Maine companies?
Is there any way that we could make Maine popular? You know, is there any way we could, you know, kind of bring our
innovation that we have available?
Maine has an amazing brand. People love it, and they love to come here. The biggest challenges are taxes, our lack of access to the internet, and like we don't tell our own story. We don't tell people's story.
I'll tell you something funny. That I have a connection with people that are you know, out of Maine, and sometimes I'll tell them I'm from Maine, and they'll say, where is that? Yeah. So that is one of the most common questions I have when I tell people that I'm from Maine that I talk to that are out of state. So I think that, you know, making Maine a national brand would be very important for us.
Well, I do it right now, and so I have my Aaron from Maine page on Facebook, and I spend that I put a lot of things about when I go around Maine. I put a lot of those videos out to the national community, international community, and then I go to other places that people would love to come here. They've never heard of what great is. And you show people Portland or Camden, or you show them Jackman and Millinocket, and they love it.
The architecture, I mean, we have a lot of history.
Another thing that you talked about that was really intriguing to me, that was again really insightful to me the other night, was how connected we are internationally as a trade unit, as a hub.
Sweden or
Iceland Iceland's become a great partner for us. Awesome. We had the Imskip company. It's an Icelandic company, it's a shipping company. That's awesome. Basically they have a hub in Iceland. We built a relationship with them. They've helped us get relationships to the ports where they ship into. And so you can
they just built that crane down there. Yeah.
And the Port Authority in Portland, together with the Maine Department of Transportation, together with the Maine International Trade Center, like that's an example where we've looked at what's the market and how do we get more things flowing in.
And I like that.
What we have to do more of, though, is make sure that we're sending stuff back out.
We need to act sovereign.
But if you listen to Trump right now, what Trump is also talking about is he's talking about how we help get Europe closer to the U.S. and further away from Russia. And so they're going to have to be shipping more in and out. And so if you look at Washington County, Maine, that could be a big port of entry. It could be a big port of entry. You have the port right now in Eastport. It's kind of a small port. We put a lot of money into that. There are some talks about other locations.
Washington's a northern county,
but if you put stuff on rail, you can take it right across to Chicago.
No, absolutely.
It's so easy. And so let's position Maine to be like Savannah is down in Georgia. They have this humongous port they built down in Savannah.
For sure.
Why don't we do that in Maine? No, because people are they hate the congestion in New York and in Boston. So give them another option. Now we are far away. Like that's our biggest. That's what is.
We're closer too.
We have deep water. We have deep water too, and we're closer to Europe. So let's take advantage, like we've been doing. So we're exploring partnerships in Norway and Greenland, and in other places that we have commonalities. It's one of the reasons why our relationship with Japan works, is because Japan, they have a lot of same challenges that Maine has. They have a seafood economy. They have an old population. They're an island, which Maine has this kind of islander kind of feel and mentality.
Yeah, it does.
So I think pursuing those relationships, and you know, in our education system, I wish we would send. And now I am like America first. However, I think that Americans in school don't learn enough about other countries. They don't learn about their histories. They don't learn about the cultures. And I wish they would travel more. I wish we would. You know, Ron Clark has an academy he started in Georgia after he was a teacher in Harlem. And he has this partnership with Delta, where Delta flies his class and they get to go like wherever in the world. Because you learn so much about your own culture when you go and see other ones. You can compare it to it.
Right.
We should get kids that it shouldn't be the first time that you figure out where Iraq is on the map is when you go to war there.
No, that's
right.
Definitely.
Which, by the way, our veterans. No one in this race right now, Moody, Mills, Hayes, they're not talking about our veterans and the problems. And I am so proud of what we did in the LePage administration, Governor LePage, Mrs. LePage, and our director of Bureau of Veteran Services that we brought in when I came in. Director Adria Horn, we have made such gains to the service and level of service that we have for our veterans, because a lot of these people that went to serve after September 11th.
No, I don't agree with all the wars we go through, but I love my veterans.
And the people that signed up, they went. Those towers fell down, and they signed up. They went to war, and they did it on purpose.
For what they believe.
Now, for a lot of them, though, they came home, and they are pissed.
No, they got nothing.
Because they thought they were promised something, and they went there for an exchange.
No, absolutely. I have a friend. Let me tell you a personal story. I have a friend that works for the VA in Florida, and he tells me, listen, though, he tells me that his way of rebelling and being a good citizen is making sure these guys get treatment.
Good.
And that's great. So that's like a personal way that a guy inside can, and I love and respect Jake. Shout out to you, man. So like,
Jake, thank you for what you're doing.
That's awesome. You know, and for somebody to do something that, you know, that's small just to help out. Maybe, you know, who knows? Bill, Steve, Tom, who knows who they were, but like, no, I think our veterans get the short end of the stick, which I'm really, really upset about. That really touches home.
What's
with me.
weird is
I'm not a veteran personally. I don't have many in my family. My grandpa was, but I love my veterans. So.
My grandfather was too, and my uncle served in the National Guard, I think. But so I would say, and by the way, Elizabeth's saying really nice things. Thanks, Elizabeth. Thank you for watching and paying attention. But you know, like there's so few people now that are service connected. That it's like the 1% are veterans and families, and we can make decisions about war without feeling the consequences ourselves. And we need to make sure that we actually are investing and supporting like your friend is.
Yeah.
The other thing that happens is there's a lot in common between the people that are coming back from OEF, OIF, Iraq, Afghanistan, these conflicts, and the people that came back from Vietnam. There's this brokenness, not in themselves, not of themselves, although like some people come back with injuries that might be PTSD or anything else, and we need to give them the help and the support that they need. The suicide rate among veterans is way too high, and we're not helping them enough. But there's this brokenness between them and the commitment and bond they made to the government. And it reminds a lot of the Vietnam veterans. And so I help connect them. I help introduce them to each other so they can say, how do you work through that? Where you've had a loss of faith in the government. And that's why, you know, if we just keep doing things the way we've always done them, we're never going to be any better than we are now. So I like to promote and say, look, let's believe we can do it differently. What if we didn't run government like a business? Because business runs like a business. Government has a different role. We don't need it. So we don't like run a government. And let's not run it like a bureaucracy either. Let's run it like a highly effective organization that understands what its mission is and it delivers on its promise to the citizens and citizens. Notice I said citizens, not non-citizens.
Yeah.
But then also, why don't we get feedback from the people who are served by it?
Absolutely.
So if you have Maine care, why don't we ask the people in Maine care, like, are you getting your needs met?
Yeah,
the answer is no.
Like
Can you even go out there?
My mother has had the worst time with her foot injury. She had a blackout spell where she collapsed, and in the collapse, the weight of herself falling on herself broke her foot. So with that, she's had 3 surgeries. Now she's on her fourth surgeon with another surgery coming up. So it's just that process of being able to say, no, the bone hasn't fused.
That leads into a question I mean,
personally,
what do you think about?
It's just a nightmare with the healthcare system.
What do you think about the privatization of prisons, of healthcare? I mean, I know that, you know, because I'm a strong supporter of the privatization of healthcare, but as a prisons, I'm you know, against that. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, like, I wouldn't be in favor of privatizing police. And so when you get into prison, you start talking about police powers.
Right.
It depends. Like, it depends what you privatize. If what you're privatizing is like ownership of the building, the state or the government is a horrible landlord and a horrible property manager.
Right.
So if physically a building is owned and we are renters, but the people and the operations are run by the state.
I think the worry is the privatization of the beds.
Yeah, but like, again, that can mean different things. Again, the government is so bad at doing most things that you can use contractors and vendors to do certain other things, but you can never give to them powers that should only belong to the government. And I think it depends what you're saying there. Because like, what do we privatize in a prison already? Sometimes you privatize, like, again, the ownership of the building, which I prefer to have not the state maintain a building because you maintain it better and you don't have the deferred maintenance. If you're privatizing like catering and meal services and stuff, like sometimes that makes sense, sometimes it doesn't.
No, I agree with you.
If you're privatizing like cleaning services, like janitorial, so it's never all or nothing. There are ways to partner it, but in the correction system, I think that much like the education system, there's a tendency to lose sight of what is the objective and what are you trying to do. If the objective for the private is just to make money rather than to serve like a goal, you can't do you can't necessarily do all of it.
I got a layman question for you. What about departments in general, like governmental departments? Do you think they're a hindrance to the way our society runs, or do you think they're helpful?
I mean, you can't paint with a broad brush there. Like, so if we're talking about the IRS, like I think the IRS at the federal level is a hindrance. If you're talking about the Maine Forestry Service, like what they do, like they're amazing and helpful.
Right.
And so it depends. But do you have some bad like folks in there? Like, yes.
Because my personal belief is that the destruction of I believe that every society and every culture has gone through the same stages. I think that, the people create a government, the government gets too full of itself.
Yeah.
And what happens is the government ends up micromanaging each portion of itself, which is creating departments, the department of this, the department of your grass, the department of your
that's why you need to have streamlined government. I believe in small government, right? So you have a small government, and it has to be very focused. I think there are a lot of good people in government. I don't know if you've read the editorial that I just put. I had an editorial in the Better Daily News on Friday that says the union often gets in the way because the union's like focused on conflict, not on like success. We have some great people. Absolutely. What we've really focused on in the LePage administration is we focused on reprogramming the culture. So the culture isn't just about compliance. Like, I'm going to get you in trouble. I'm going to tell you can't do something. Instead, it's about education and customer service. So like there are way too many laws and rules and regulations. Then you have these regulators that come in and they think they're going to get you to fine you and write your ticket.
Right.
Well, instead we say like your job isn't to just get people in trouble and be a compliance officer. Your job, because you know the rules better than anyone. So you go educate the business owner. You go educate the member of the public or the parent or the whatever else. And I think that's what the main part of environmental protection has become a lot better in that. Even our liquor enforcement has gotten better. There's room to go there. We've moved it because you don't want to focus, and so it depends.
No, I agree.
And we need departments in some things.
We definitely do. The
area where it's failing right now is child welfare, though. The fact that we have welfare workers that went into houses and saw little girls getting beat, and they didn't do anything. They just talked about it internally, and they said, "Oh, well, we told each other." No. You take that kid away from the parents that are beating that kid. Right. If there's even a question, like I'd rather err on the side of now. You parents need to have rights too, but if there's a question about whether that kid's getting their head smashed against a wall, you get that kid out of that situation.
Or vice versa. I mean, if state is if the state or the government is not doing a good thing, also, I mean, children do get abused also by group homes or institutions as well.
Oh, totally. Long Creek is an example. I mean, the state, again, that's like these things are like the state's not good at running these things themselves.
Right.
But when you privatize the state's role, it also becomes problematic because where's the accountability and where's the transparency? And so there needs to be accountability.
What owns that corporation? You're absolutely no.
Well, does freedom of access apply? Does not.
And again, I think the problem with the privatization of it is more or less the privatization of the moral standard of it, because privatizing the individual services, you'd absolutely want the small business or whatever having the advantage versus the state corporation. But at the same time, you don't want the moral standard to lack to the state because at one time, state legalized slavery, state legalized just a bunch of different things that were morally reprehensible. So I think the biggest thing comes with privatizing the moral side of it all. I like what you say about the prisons. I definitely I don't know though how private is the Maine State Prison, because I do know that the head of the state prison, his son is also the head or was the head of the juvenile system. So like with the abuse that we do know about,
that's more of a job title than an ownership position.
No, I feel you there, but like where can we cut that nepotism? Oh, well, I think nepotism and political favoritism, like those are like so frustrating. And I mean, you can never get rid of it because
I'm glad you brought that.
Everyone's related, but like I think it's unwarranted, and I think that's what happens too much. That's why I say running government like a highly effective organization. People should be hired to run departments based on being the best person for the job.
Right.
Best person for the job,
exactly.
And held accountable. And if you're no longer working, you move on. And government doesn't do that. Exactly. But instead, it's like, who are you sleeping with? Who are you married to? What's your party? Did you do this? Are you serving that legislator? Are you former legislator? Yeah. And no, like, we need to hold people accountable. Best person for the job, and when you're not working, you move on.
Absolutely.
I believe that, absolutely. You know, the new warden, though, Randy Liberty, who's running the prisons, is very well respected. I liked him a lot when he was the sheriff in Kennebec, when he was sheriff, and he's been okay warden for the state prison now. The commissioner, I mean, the governor LePage had 2 commissioners. The deputy commissioner who's there is a young guy who I think is phenomenal, and who I would hire as commissioner. The thing that's interesting for me, being governor, it'll be interesting because I actually know all of the existing managers in our government, some of whom I hired on behalf of the governor, some of whom I helped move along in their career on behalf of the governor, because we needed to make sure that we had the right people in jobs. And so there are some people there that we could just keep going. And as a governor, because so much of the role that I see is going to be externally focused. Yes, internally, there's a lot that we're going to do, and I know how to do that. I know how to manage people. But a lot of it is really about putting the right people in charge of the departments and holding them accountable for what the public needs and holding them accountable to the public. Then there's this big public-facing thing we need to do to tell Maine's story and go out into the communities where the real work needs to happen and partner out there. And I think I would focus a lot of my time being in local communities rather than being in Augusta and making sure we have the right people there. And there are some departments that have the right people, and there are some that don't. And I know which are which, and I have a list, and I have candidates lined up already of who I would recruit. I've done it. Several of the commissioners that are leading departments, some of our best commissioners, are people that I either helped recruit, I recommended to the governor, I interviewed, and I'm very proud of the departments where I was working. I'm very proud of the leadership that I helped bring in and support. And I don't say that like I'm better than them. No, like part of being a good, I did human capital strategy. You have to identify people who are the best at what they do and let them do it, and then ask the right questions, hold them accountable, figure out what you're measuring. And I can do that stuff. But
that's what we're looking for in a governor. We're looking for a leader.
Based on that, I guess shout out to Harsh Reality, great supporter, great platform. One of his main questions was, A, how was it working for LePage? And B, what was some of the things that he did really good, and what were some of the things that you might build on that he didn't do so good, but you could do a good service with?
So working for Governor LePage, it was the honor of a lifetime. Working for any governor of a state is a great honor, but this one in particular, he's different. And I'll tell you, there was never a dull moment in the office. Certainly with this governor.
Oh, I would have loved to have been a fly on the
sometimes. But the big thing with him is he doesn't care what people say about him. He doesn't care what lobbyists want or say.
I admire that in a person.
He doesn't do anything. I mean, you guys know this. Like, he doesn't do anything just to be liked. He had this great integrity, and he would sleep well at night because he was right with himself. And so that, I think, was fantastic. And so his approach, and so he's very opinionated, and he come in with like a big basin because he's had great career. His wisdom that comes from having a long career, having a lot of experience, different things. But he was also open to, and people don't realize this about him because they say, "Oh, you can't ever change his mind." You could, but you had to have facts. You had to have numbers. He was a forensic accountant. So numbers speak to him more than anything. And it's not, and you could persuade him, and he would go, but you'd have to convince him it's the best interest of the Maine people. And if you ever said, well, this special interest group or that lobbyist said this, he'd say, get out of my office. Like, he didn't care about that. I thought that was great. He was laser focused on several different things that he wanted to fix. He wanted to lower the income tax rate. He wanted to lower the cost of energy. Right now, he's like a dog in the bone on this issue of municipalities that kick elderly people out of their houses when they could have, let them live there and then sold it later.
My wife and his wife.
That touches personal home with us. So
right. And so he wants to protect.
I told you they lost their jobs because the old folks' homes had closed down, and
which I believe is Maine Care, not Maine Care, but Maine Medical Center monopolized them because they also just bought Pizzavilla. They're buying, what I believe it is them buying up facilities to secure beds, which is where that privatization comes in. Because if you were to make that private, then you wouldn't have so much of the overlook of how big they're getting. Yeah.
Well, and in Maine Care, one of the problems we have in Maine Care too, which this is the problem. We put people on Maine Care to say, oh, you're gonna have access to health care. Well, Maine care reimbursement rates are so low that providers don't want to accept it. They don't want Maine care. They don't want to take it. They say, oh, you're going to pay me back like 20 cents on the dollar. And so what we need to make sure we're doing is we're not fooling people. We tell them, oh, we're going to expand Medicaid and then everything's going to be taken care of. No, it's not, because the hospitals are still losing and the doctors are still losing. And maybe big hospitals can absorb the losses, but the small ones can't. And that's exactly what suffers. Yeah. So I think working for Governor LePage was great because he allowed us to be critical. He didn't allow us to like play nicely. The thing that I would say I would do differently is I obviously communicate differently than Governor LePage, and he didn't always believe it was necessary to build a coalition or do the things that would get people on board with you. Yeah, and there's a lot of that. And he can do it. He can do it when he wanted to, but a lot of the time he didn't want to. And I think that for the next 8 years, it's really the next 4 years, we need a leader in the Blaine House. We need a leader in the governor's office who can help educate legislators, citizen legislators who are there to try to do the right thing or to try to help the people. And the ones that are not there to do the right thing, we need to expose them.
Well, that's good that you hit on that point, because I have a cousin who is he was a genetic engineer, and he said to me one time, he said, Matt, it's not what to be a teacher, it's not what you know.
He's a biochemist.
It's not what you know, it's how you get but he worked under a genetic engineer. And basically but the point is that it's not what you know, it's how as a teacher, it's how you get that point across to the student. And I think you hit upon a point there. LePage meant very well, and what he did was very hard hitting. But as far as his communication skills and his ableness to get out there and to communicate with the people and to get his point across,
and he could do it. He could do it when he tried it, when he went straight to the people himself. And I always respected that he would do these town halls. He didn't have to do them, and a lot of times it created headaches for us and for him. But he believed that it was his role as governor to go be accountable to the people. And I think that's so important. Susan Collins doesn't do town halls, right?
No, touching on that, one of the main things I spoke to you earlier about how one of the reasons why I touched out to you and my feelings about why I should have voted for Gary Johnson. Now, one of the things that he talked about being governor was he had Thursday open day where he would talk to citizens and figure out where the real problems in his state were. So,
what is the LFO?
Huh?
What is the LFO?
Yeah, No, he also called Trump. He also called Trump a pussy. So he was definitely an eccentric guy.
Yeah,
but he had.
Well, LePage did that too. LePage did Saturdays. Yeah. But what's hilarious is the governor didn't need to do those Saturdays. He did them, but he didn't need to do because he opened all the mail himself.
No, right.
Like all the mail that came to the Office of Constituent Service, he would get them. He'd read them all. And he'd assign them to senior staff. And I'd say, Governor, I got stuff to do. He goes, no. Your job is here to work for those people. And you have to realize that everyone that calls the government only tells them one side of the story, and there's always more to figure out. But like it is our job. It's our job to make sure the government is responsive to the people that are served by it. So you're absolutely right. And that's why like I spend so much of my time on the governor's behalf, on Governor LePage's behalf, at his request, in communities, working with town councilmen and selectmen, and working with teachers, working with schools, rather than sitting, in a ivory tower in Augusta.
Well, I think numbers matter and statistics matter, and I think where we are now versus 8 years ago, I think for you to be promoting that is not a bad thing at all, and I think is very we appreciate. So.
Well, and we have surpluses. Our books are balanced, and we can't afford to go back, and we also can't afford. So there are two things that LePage did. One, Republicans took over with fiscal responsibility, but two, he brought in a wave of outsiders that took it away from the establishment. Unfortunately, what we have now is the establishment is regrouped, and they're trying to come in wolf in sheep's clothing, and they really want to be back, both on the Democrat side and on the Republican side. And what I'm fighting for, and why I invite people to go to my website, runaaronrun.com, or visit my Facebook page at Run Aaron Run,
get out there and vote,
is because we need to make sure that we don't give the establishment back the keys to the State House. Instead, that we have a governor who's working for you and who's not, he's not accountable to anyone. I'm only going to be accountable to people that vote for me. And to vote for me, you're actually going to have to write in my name. You're going to fill in a circle and write in Aaron, Aaron, because my name won't be on the ballot.
Not difficult at all.
5 letters.
Yeah.
But that's because I'm only going to work for you. I'm not going to be beholden to a party. I'm not going to be beholden to an ideology. I'm not going to be beholden to any special interests. We're just going to do what we can to put the pedal to the metal in the Maine economy and make this the place. Make it our best Maine. And we know how great Maine can be.
And if you've ever asked yourself, why do I get stuck with these same politicians over and over and over again? It's because you didn't write in Aaron. So remember that.
All right. I think that's a good stopping point.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much, and
I
thanks to Harsh,
appreciate you.
thanks to Harsh and the Harsh Reality audience, and to Larry. This has been a great time, and
for sure.
No, thank you.
Definitely.
Thanks, man.
I love having you on. The one thing I wanted to touch upon before you left was man, it was just on the tip of my tongue.
Well, we'll do a bonus edition. So we'll do.
I'm not gonna go there tonight.
We'll do a
no,
follow-up.
this was great. I'm so glad to have Aaron on and here in person for a live edition of Join the Discussion again.
And the rain stopped. We thought we were gonna have to go inside.
We thought we were rained out.
The best part of being in Maine in the summer is you get to be outside, enjoy the outdoors, be in the fresh air.
And if you don't like the weather, wait a minute.
Right? No, for sure. So again, all the websites that we've mentioned, Run Aaron Run, Aaron for Maine. Get out there and get educated about who you're voting for and what's going on. So again, I'm gonna end with a quote from my man Marcus Aurelius. Stop talking about what a good man should be and be one. We got a good governor candidate here, so let's get out and vote for him. Alrighty? Have a good night, everybody, and we'll see you next time.